Remember those old pullback toy cars from your childhood and want to play a game to remind you of a simpler time? Well, Mad Tracks is the perfect game for you. Mad Tracks is a casual party racing game developed by Load Inc. and released in 2006 for the Xbox Arcade, Nintendo Wii, and other mobile and handheld devices. A more updated and more modern version of the game was released by Plug-in Digital on Steam in 2020, which is a version of the game that I will play and will review in today's video. Mad Tracks is a pretty simple but fun game. The game revolves around the player driving tiny wind-up toy cars in everyday environments like bedrooms, restaurants, toy stores, and more, in a range of different mini-games, which range from regular racing, darts, bobsledding, and last man standing arenas. The game also features a range of power-ups in the style of a kart racer that can either help or hinder you, depending if you're on the receiving end or not. The driving mechanics in Mad Tracks are pretty simple and arcadey, which makes it pretty easy to pick up and play. Cars are very fast and grippy, which allows the player lots of control, but the cars are also very lightweight, besides the heavy class, making them prone to being flipped and knocked around, which is pretty realistic for a toy car. The driving mechanics on their own are pretty basic, and you would think it would make for a pretty boring driving experience on their own, but that's not the case. Due to the wind-up car gimmick, as the driving centers around the player managing a spring engine as the car's source of power that slowly gets used up whenever you accelerate, and when it runs out, your speed gets reduced to a crawl until you wind up the spring again. To wind up the spring engine, the player has to simply let go of the accelerator or use a battery power-up that rewinds the spring. The game features 3 classes: light, sporty, and heavy. Whatever class you pick is also what the other drivers will use, and most events will force you into a certain class depending on the event. The cars in light class are, you guessed it, very light and small. These cars are usually reserved for the battle arenas and obstacle-based events. The cars in the sporty class are the fastest in the game, mainly being used in most races and time attack events. The cars in the heavy class are the most slowest in the game, and they're rarely coming up in most events, besides events that require pushing objects. Each class has 4 cars to pick from, each representing the country in the game: America, England, France, and Germany. The country you pick is only a visual difference and provides no performance benefit as far as I can tell. Unlike other racing games that strictly follow racing gameplay, Mad Tracks mixes it up by not only including traditional racing, but different and unique game modes that really help with keeping the gameplay fresh. In total, there are about 46 different events that all have their own unique map and game rules. I won't go through all of them, as we would be here all day, but here's some of my favourite. Beastly Balls is a game mode where you have to survive as long as possible while dodging balls that instantly eliminate you when touched. Life on Edge is an arena game mode where you have to knock other players off a skyscraper, all while avoiding being knocked off yourself. Last man standing wins. The Crusaders is a game mode with 2 teams. One team tries to complete a circuit while the other team tries to stop them. Art Attack is a game mode about bowling with vases. Knock down as much as you can to win. This game also has soccer, which Rocket League would shamelessly copy 9 years later. In Mad Tracks, there is, as I have mentioned before, there are power-ups. You get power-ups by driving through yellow crates. Each crate has a random chance of giving 1 out of 12 power-ups. These power-ups include Rocket, a small rocket that locks onto the nearest target and flips them over. Barrel Drop, 3 heavy barrels you can drop on the floor behind you that slows down and knocks anyone who hits them off course. Oil Slick, a patch of oil that causes other racers to lose control when they drive over it. Battery, this power-up will instantly recharge your spring when used, very useful when your spring runs out on an uphill or to counter the EMP. Fake Power-Up, this power-up drops a fake power-up that will invert the controls on anyone who hits it for a couple of seconds. Jet Boost, a power-up that doubles your forward momentum. It can even be used in the air. High Beams, blinds every opponent for 1 moment, just and long enough to miss that turn. Freeze, an auto lock beam that freezes the lock on target into an ice cube. Shield, a protective shield that protects you from rockets and other attacks. It can also repel other racers and physics objects. The EMP will deactivate it though. EMP, empties all opponents' springs and disables all shields. Mortar, one giant rocket that locks onto the player in first place, kinda like the blue shell from Mario Kart. Time Wrap, Slows down time for everyone except for the user. If you get slowed down, you can use the jet boost to counter it though. The power-ups in the game really help with making the game interesting and fun, with most power-ups having a counter or special tech to learn as you get better at the game. It's a shame that there isn't any online multiplayer. It would have been fun to mess around with your friends using these power-ups. There are 3 different game modes in Mad Tracks: Adventure, which is the main career game mode where you will be able to unlock new events and power-ups by collecting gold medals by winning in events. Arcade is pretty much just a free play mode where you can play any event you have unlocked in Adventure. You also can play in split screen in Arcade mode. Big Battle, a championship where you play a series of events and the player with the most points after all events wins. The funny thing about the Big Battle mode is that you can only unlock it by finding a series of collectibles. Some nitpicks that I have for Mad Tracks is that the physics can feel a bit fidgety, especially when you need to reverse or recover from after a crash. Also, the UI in Mad Tracks is kinda ugly and looks pretty generic. The same could be said for the graphics. It's not as ugly as the UI, and I didn't expect too much from a smaller budget game, but the lighting effects and particle system and texture quality seem dated, even for a 2006 game. However, the things that I really like is the level design, as most levels have secret shortcuts that, on repeated replays, you eventually learn and memorize, helping you to easily beat AI opponents and set new lap times, which makes the game feel really rewarding once you get good. The power-ups in the game are also really cool and fun to mess around with, as you find out new counters and combos. As the game was developed by the French, you just know you're going to have your ears blessed. Lachim's Prod was the composer of the soundtrack in Mad Tracks, or as the French would call it, Et petites volatries 3D! The music really helps with the atmosphere, whether you are racing at night in a closed down shop or racing down a giant ramp. The music is this orgasmic cherry on top. I'll play you some of my favourite music tracks. When Mad Tracks was originally released in 2006, it received mixed to average reviews. The game was praised for its creative and diverse range of minigames, its unique toy car scale map design, and the fun local split-screen modes. It was however criticised for its janky physics, dated graphics, and poor sound design. When the game was re-released with a HD revamp for Steam in 2020, this version received a lot more positive reviews, mainly from the small but dedicated fanbase that fell in love with the original game. This version was also very popular to newcomers due to its simple pick up and play gameplay and its cheap price tag. Overall, Mad Tracks is a pretty low budget and simple but charming time killer game that you have no reason not to check out, especially considering the cheap price tag. It's fun having a little nostalgia trip back to the days where I spent my days playing toy cars and my biggest worry was a Brahma triangle or something like that. Well, thanks for watching till the end. Sorry if my video turnout has slowed a bit, as I am currently working on my Year 12 media project. If you enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and I'll see you later. Hyperbeam out.